I always like to classify the solution STEM based and non-STEM based, which I call as a good governance and policies. The reason I do that because there are some students, they love STEM. STEM means science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Okay, and they love STEM. And I personally believe that there are some solutions. It requires good governance and policies. So there are some students, they say, you know what, I don't like STEM, but I do like social science, politics, economics, management. So that's the reason I just created this two different classification then, and you can choose whichever way you want to drive your career. So the first one is about the NITI Aayog. We talked about that in this report. The NITI Aayog report, it says that the data, acquired data is not full and it's not reliable. So one thing you can, in your future career path, what you can do is that when you become computer scientist, you become entrepreneur, you become a modern farmer, you can try to solve this problem for Indian government and develop a complete and reliable coverage data sets. Okay, and this will require our existing generations, my generations, and the next generations, because this is ongoing work. I don't think so it's going to be resolved by future generations or this generation. It's going to be ongoing efforts, especially a country like India, which is very vast in terms of culture, 29 states, many languages. And that's the reason we require a good cooperation between states. And then we require a national water management policy. I think the work isn't going on right now, but I think the states are disputing. The fact is that as of 2018, the states are disputing for the water. That tells us that there is a need for a national water management policies which will allow equal and fair access to water for all. So number two is going to be agriculture. And it's a no-brainer because 80% of the water is being consumed by this agriculture industry. And I think you can do a lot of things in terms of STEM. You can change the flood irrigation into dripper and sprinklers, right? I mean, so currently 80% of I'm not going to say 80%, but most of the irrigation is being done by flood irrigations. And if you change it to a micro irrigation, which is dripper, it should be dripper, not dripper and sprinklers. That's going to be a very efficient water management. And again, when you come down to a good governance and policies, subsidies and policies, I mean, you can come up with a great technology, but if you don't have any way to convince traditional or conventional farmers that, look, you need to now modernize your agriculture method, but they don't have money, and that's true. And so that's the reason I think government, not only government, the private and public sector, they should just make it affordable. This technology comes out, how can you subsidize so that India comes into a modern agriculture arena? So like I said, that subsidies and policies should be implemented. That's going to be a challenging task. And then national policies to increase water storage capacities. That's also part of, you require some policies behind that. The third one is about water conservations. It's not always about how do I modernize my infrastructure, but it's also about how do you harness rainwater. It's one of the example, I mean, many times you hear in monsoon time, Mumbai or New Delhi, you see that they have been flooded with the water. So one question you can ask yourself, how do I make useful of this water? How do I harness this rainwater so that you can use it, or you can store it and you can use it for future usage? The wastewater recycling, I mean, this is something, you can reuse even sewage water also. I mean, countries like Israel is very big into this. So India needs to take a giant leap into this, that how do we recycle the waste water and make it useful for even drinking and industrial application. The fifth one is my favorite, desalinations. The simple meaning of desalination is that you are removing the water, salt. You are removing the salt from the ocean water or salty water. That's simple meaning of salt desalination. And we learn in our research, if you remember, that 96.5%, okay, it's ocean, it's salty water, okay. And this is where the challenge comes out, that can we develop an affordable and sustainable desalination technology? Currently, the biggest challenge here is that this desalination, it requires a lot of energy. It's very expensive also, and there are some efforts going on with solar power desalination. And again, Israel is very big into this, and this should be an ongoing process. And then again, policies, and there are some good policies required not only by states and India but globally. I mean, let's just take this thing on a global level. That why it's not that India is facing this water crisis. Africa, even in USA, sometimes California, for example, is facing water crisis once in a while when monsoon or winter is not good. So why can't we just tap into, let's say, 0.5% of ocean, okay, and then we make useful for our lives. Again, you can recycle also whatever the wastage. So there is a way you can balance that also. But again, this require a global thinking, a very large scale cooperation between states, countries, and continents. So I think this is kind of a very ambitious goal. But again, let's just start with very simple thing within India. Whether this technology, desalination, can be used to solve water scarcity. Now here comes my another favorite parts, high school and college projects. This is where I think I love it. I founded this Next Generation Nation so that I can educate the next generation high schoolers about the global issues. So I just put together these projects here. Again, this is just as a guideline, but you could develop your own projects. But this is the project it focuses on. It focuses on how can you solve India's water crisis. And here's one of the few examples here. Number one is rainwater. Can you capture this rainwater where you live and make useful of it? I mean, I don't want you to just directly drink rainwater. It should be filtered through. And then before you do this experiment, make sure that it's safe to drink, and do talk with your parents or your local experts. But again, just think about it. Can you capture the rainwater? And if you can, then how do you make useful for various applications? You could write a position paper. I mean, this is my favorite thing. Write a position paper to your local government. And this is okay. So this one is, so the number one is, again, when I talk about capturing rainwater, again, that's a STEM solution, okay? The non-STEM solution, which is good governance and policies, write a position papers, and to your local government, write down what policies change you require. And it doesn't, I mean, you all you have to ask your parents, friends, or you may be having this problem and you know the solution. Don't be shy. Pick up the pen or pick up your laptop and start writing. And you know what, the next thing you can do it, you can submit your position paper at ngn.org. But first, you must register at ngn.org. Once you register at ngn.org, you will get your channel. And inside the channel, you should be able to upload your position paper. Number two, we just now talked about desalination. The only thing I want you to think about is that, first of all, learn about this technology, how it works. And then see if we can combine this desalination technology with solar. Yeah, I mean, that's the future. And then you can create a 90 seconds video and submit to ngn.org. The way I explain 90 seconds video is that in 90 seconds, you should be able to explain what are the issues, what problem you are trying to solve, what's your solution, and and then how it's going to resolve your local community issue. You don't have to go as far as global. You can focus on local issue also. You can say that, okay, in my apartment or in my building, I have water crisis issue, and this is the problem I found out, and I identified the root cause, and I solved this problem. It could be your apartment, it could be your house also, but speak up. If you don't speak up, people will not know about the problem. So let's create this 90 seconds video again and submit to ngn.org. And number 2 is about, like I already mentioned before, that think big. Desalination. Can you? We have 195 countries, and we have 96.5% Earth's water is in the form of ocean. So how do you make global policies so that all the people, resources, money, infrastructure, all these technologies, all these countries, they come together and build an infrastructure, build a system so that we can have a giant desalination plant and all over the world. But again, it's very easy saying than doing because right now this desalination technology, like I said, that Israel is very big into it, and I think recently India and Israel they also are doing some joint venture. But again, moving forward a few years from now, I do want you guys to think a little bit bigger than your local community, your country, your state, your country. Just think bigger. How do I solve a global water crisis? Number 3 is on a build campaign in your school and community. The awareness is very much important. Anytime you have an issue, you should make people aware of it. You can use these social media technologies, create a campaign, and you can promote your causes in ngn.org. And then don't forget that when you come to ngn.org, click on subject, and then look for the goal number 2. The fourth one is water in atmosphere, and this is very cool. Before we talk about this, I think what you should be learning about that the science behind the water, and you already know that I did talked about that. There's a certain percentage of water it's in atmosphere. Can you capture that atmospheric water and make useful out of it? This is very cool. But again, my guess is that 0.04% drinkable water, or I'm going to say fresh water, is available in the atmosphere. It's challenging. Just do research. Don't do anything. Just do research and publish your position paper. Again, how do you capture water from atmosphere? And the last one is the agriculture. Again, can you develop a technology, a smart sensors like humidity sensors, temperature sensors, water monitoring sensor? Think about it. How do you solve? How do you modernize India's agriculture industry? And you can debate this also in your classroom. If your classroom allows it, then yeah, just do debate on this modernizing agriculture. With that, I'm going to end this lecture.